Brigitte Bardot, she was so much more than a movie star. She was a cultural giant, a genuine force of nature who completely reshaped the 20th century. But her legacy, well, it's anything but simple. Okay, let's get into this. Beyond all the fame and the headlines, her story is really one of revolution. And believe it or not, that entire revolution can be traced back to a single seismic moment in film history, a moment that literally sent shockwaves around the world. It sounds kind of impossible, doesn't it? How could a few minutes of dancing on a screen have such a massive, lasting impact? But it did. And to really understand how, we've got to go back to 1956. All right, so this is where it all begins. Not in Hollywood, not in Paris, but in a small town that was about to have its future completely rewritten, all because of one unforgettable scene. The setting itself was pretty unassuming. Saint-Tropez was just this quiet little fishing village on the French Riviera. Nobody, and I mean nobody, could have predicted it was about to become the epicenter of a cultural explosion. So picture this scene. You're in this dense, smoke-filled bar, and the tense gaze of every single man is locked onto her. And then Bardot's character, Juliette, just erupts into motion. The energy is just so raw and completely untamed. And this, right here, this is the core of the revolution. She's barefoot, her long blonde hair is a total mess. And you can actually see the sweat glistening on her skin. This was nothing like the polished, perfect heroines audiences were used to. This was something primal. They described it at the time as an animal sensuality. So let's break down exactly what made this so radical. Every single element here was a direct challenge to the really rigid post-war rules of modesty. Showing sweat on screen? Unheard of. The messy hair, the barefoot dancing, it all signaled that this was a woman who wasn't just performing for men. She was lost in her own experience, claiming her own desire, her own autonomy. The impact wasn't just artistic. It was immediate, and it was explosive. The world had just never seen anything like it, and the reaction was, well, pretty intense. The reaction was just completely split down the middle. In her own country, France, the conservative parts of society were totally scandalized. They accused the film of sexual brazenness. But then you hop across the Atlantic to the United States, and it was a massive commercial hit, breaking all kinds of box office records for a foreign film. And of course, the official backlash only poured gasoline on the fire. The film was condemned by religious groups, it was banned outright in several U.S. states, and even prohibited in Franco's Spain for nearly 15 years. But all this really did was amplify her myth and launch Bardot into the stratosphere of global fame. And the real-world impact was just as dramatic. That quiet little fishing village from the movie became a real-life destination, almost overnight. Saint-Tropez was suddenly on the map, transforming into the symbol of glamour and freedom for the European jet set, a status it still holds today. But her impact went so much further than one film or one town. She became a symbol for a whole new way of being. And here's the crucial point. Even the great feminist philosopher Simone de Beauvoir took notice. In a famous essay, she observed that Bardot represented a brand new kind of woman. She wasn't just an object of desire, she was an active participant, a hunter in her own right. Now that was a truly radical idea for the 1950s. This timeline really shows you the cascade effect. Her 1956 film doesn't just redefine sensuality, its massive success proved that experimental French cinema could actually make money, and that paved the way for the French New Wave. By the 60s, she was a full-blown fashion icon, and then, in a move that just stunned the world, she walked away from it all in 1973. Her style was practically a uniform of rebellion. The long, untamed hair, the simple ballet flats, and of course, the bikini, which was still considered pretty scandalous in a lot of places. It all became a symbol of a new, natural, and liberated femininity for an entire generation of women. So after conquering the world of film and fashion, Bardot did something nobody expected. She began a second, completely different life. This quote really says it all. She saw her life in two very distinct parts. That first part, the global icon phase, that was for public consumption. But the second part, she decided, would be dedicated to a cause she felt was way more important. And she wasn't just paying lip service to the cause, no. She took decisive action. She retired at her absolute peak, sold off her personal treasures to raise funds, and created a foundation that became her life's work. She became one of the world's most prominent and fierce animal rights activists. But her story doesn't end there. Like a lot of icons, the final chapters of her life are complex and deeply controversial, and it's absolutely essential that we understand the full picture. And this is where we see the stark contradictions. On one hand, you have the symbol of liberation, who empowered a generation of women. On the other, a polarizing figure who is fined multiple times for inciting racial hatred, with anti-immigrant rhetoric. The pioneering animal rights activist was also married to an advisor for the far right, and the icon of freedom made deeply hurtful public remarks about her own son. So that leaves us with a really difficult question. Bardot was a revolutionary who broke down social barriers, but she later embraced ideas that built new ones. Her legacy is this incredible mix of liberation and intolerance. And it forces us to ask, how do we process the full story of our most complicated icons?